Hey everybody, how's it going? We are here with another new video. This is again from the Prarie State Cycling Series. This is the Waukegan Crit. You can see up in the right hand corner the course was pretty easy. It was a relatively quick race. I believe our average ended up being about 26 miles an hour, which is pretty quick. It was one of the faster races that I've done this year for sure. One of the big things that I had trouble with in this race was there was a lot of brake checking through the corners, and you'll kind of see me check some brake as well, but definitely not as much as a lot of the other racers in this race did. As you can see, these corners are super wide, super easy to take, but there was still a lot of slowing down through the corners and kind of sometimes on the straights too, which was a little frustrating when I was trying to move up through the field and take lines where I could. So you can see right off the bat we're hauling. This is the back half of the course. There was a headwind on this side of the course, I believe, but it was the easiest place to move up during the entire race. So this is probably the tightest corner in the race, and you can see that it's still pretty wide open. There is a tiny little climb coming up here on this corner, which wasn't really a big deal, but going throughout the race, it was just enough to kind of make the selection of who was going to be towards the front of the pack and who wasn't. So really I just tried to sit on wheels every time I went up this part of the course. And then we come up here into the finishing straight in just a second, and that'll finish our first lap off. So you can see we're still moving at a pretty decent click here at 28. As we move through the race, though, the pace didn't really slow down at all. Can kind of see here we're still sitting at 26, 27. Right here, I see an opportunity to move up, and I tap that guy on his backside so that he knows I'm there, because he was moving over to the right, and I just didn't want something to happen that didn't need to happen, you know. So I use that side to move up, trying to get further up towards the front so I didn't have to deal with so much of the braking. I know this guy right here on the left in the blue is a real good wheel to follow. It's a guy named Dane. He's super strong, super confident rider. So I just try to get up towards him and stay near him and a couple other guys during the race. You know, guys I know I trust, guys I know that can handle their bikes here. So you can kind of see we're starting to grab brake through the corner because people wanted to slow down, and there really wasn't any need to, which was kind of frustrating. That kind of became a pattern throughout this whole series. Was a lot of braking that didn't really need to happen, but happened anyway. But you know, I can't complain too much if I'm not at the front setting the pace, so I just kind of dealt with it. So I believe this is on a preem lap, and you can kind of tell that we're starting to pick up the pace here. The group is extremely strung out. There's a tiny break up front. I believe it was a two-man break, and they stayed off for quite a bit of time, and we eventually caught them with probably 3 laps to go, I believe. But it was a little bit of an effort from everybody in the group, and we just kind of tried to push as hard as we could. But kind of keeping those guys out there so we didn't have to put in a whole ton of work. So we're coming into the last 2 corners before the finishing straight, and I didn't really want to challenge any preems in this race. I just wanted to keep my position and try and get a good finishing position, but my goal here was just kind of to stay towards the front. You can see there's probably about 10 guys in front of me at this point in time, which I'm okay with, since we're not, you know, 3/4 of the way through the race. We'd only have a few laps left, so I wanted to just kind of stay in a comfortable spot where I could move up if I needed to, which is what I'm actually doing right here. And if you do see me kind of playing with my right shifter a lot, that is because during this race I actually had a mechanical issue where the shifter was actually broken, and after the race I went over to the neutral support tent by SRAM. Guys are awesome. They were looking at it, and it actually just fell completely apart. The shifter mechanicals fell apart, and they were great. They hooked it up, and I got a new one there so I could continue to race the rest of the series. without any issues, which was awesome. So I was pretty stoked about that. You can see here, I'm up towards the front. I knew that these guys that were on the front were going to work if we needed to catch the break. Like I said, I believe it was 2 guys. And here they have about 20-second gap on us, so they're about crossing the finish line right about now. And so we're trying to work together. I grabbed this wheel here since I wasn't about to just charge ahead of these guys to pick up the pace even more when the pace we had was just fine. So just kind of sticking on a wheel, you know, more than willing to work if I need to, but I'm not going to take the lead from the guys that are already up there right now. This was probably the most fun part of the race, just because I was all the way up front and we were able to, you know, take the lines how we wanted, go as fast as we wanted through the corners, and it wasn't just a constant surge of, you know, slow down for the corner, pick up the pace out of the corner, slow down for the corner. So it was enjoyable that we didn't have to do that. So here again, just trying to stay on a wheel. I didn't know if this guy was dying or not, so I was about to go around him, but he picks up the pace again. We passed some, I believe that was the breakaway, and so you can kind of see they slowed up. We reeled them in. This is a little bit more than halfway through the race, if I'm remembering correctly. And so now that we've caught the break, we're still keeping the pace decently high, just because once you catch a break, it's either a good idea to keep the pace high or send a counter attack almost immediately. So I go a little bit further towards the front here to prepare for something. If something's going to happen, I wanted to try and get in a break, but nothing ever comes of that. So we actually get to slow down a little bit, which was a nice change of pace after, you know, gunning those guys down so hard. So as we're coming in through the finish line here, I see this guy, and it kind of looked like he was going to put in an attack, and then he just, you know, immediately slows down. But it kind of signals that the group is starting to swarm around the backside of us. So we keep the speed up kind of through these corners. I mean, we're going much slower than we had been before. But at this point, I can kind of feel the pack has caught back up to us. You know, we're starting to bunch up. Everybody slows down right here because nobody wants to take the pull into the wind. And again, I'm just trying to stick on a wheel where I can. I know that Dane right here is a good wheel to stay on, so I'm trying to do my best to stay on his wheel. And here you can see the pack start to come up on the left and the right. And I just kind of get wedged out and can't grab the wheel I wanted, which causes me to fall back a little bit. I do eventually get back on his wheel. I'm second wheel at this point. We pick up the pace a little bit, and I tell Dane, you know, if he can pull me through these corners, I'll pull on that back straight into the headwind, which may or may not have been the best choice, because obviously it's going to take a lot more work to do that, but we had a couple second gap on the field. It wasn't more than, you know, three or 4 seconds, but it was a little bit. So I start to pull here, and I kind of take a look back and notice that I had pulled away from Dane a little bit, so I slowed down. And then we immediately get a guy who just launches off the front, and I was not about to chase him into the wind, so I kind of let the rest of the group catch back up and just grab a wheel again and just sit in, because like I said, I wasn't about to try and counter attack into the wind when I know that this group can catch those guys who just tried to jump off the front. So I again just grab a wheel up this hill, and this is the final lap here. So I'm feeling pretty comfortable. You can see my heart rate's kind of high, and I'm kind of far back in the group at this point, so I know I need to move up. This guy right here just kind of falls off the map for some reason and doesn't move over to the side. So I know that I need to move up here. I know that I'm a little too far back. You can kind of see I'm about 15 wheels maybe back. And so I'm trying to pick up the pace here. And I know I can make up spots on this backside even though it's going to hurt. So that was my intention and my plan. And I just I grabbed this wheel because we're starting to accelerate. And you'll see in a minute here, what I should have done is gone to the right with this guy in front of me. And what I end up doing is grab a wheel that of a guy who I know handles his bike real well on the left, and I get pinched up against the fence behind a bunch of guys. And you'll see here in a second, if you look real carefully on the right hand side, the rider that I should have followed kind of gets past the group through the corner, which would have been perfect. It would have been a perfect place to be going into that final sprint. Instead, I'm caught out of position and have to try and make up positions through the corner and through the up the hill, which is a difficult place to be, especially when I didn't put in as much as I probably could have. So you see, I do pass a couple riders, trying to keep my pace up, and at this point I'm just basically cooked. I know that I'm not going to get one of those podium positions, but I still put in a pretty decent effort. And a couple guys get past me, but yeah, wasn't too bad. That was it. Hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you next time.